Hello, class. All right, welcome back to the second activity of Lesson 8. I think it'll be a good idea for us to spend some more time working with diagrams, as they can be a little bit tricky for some of you. And so I wanted to go through a couple more activities here that involve diagrams, as well as the equations, so we can understand how to make sense of these problems. So you can see here that we have 3 tape diagrams right in here, and 3 descriptions of situations that include questions. So if you scroll down, you can see the 3 situations are here, right? These are the situations or questions, and these are the diagrams that match them. So for each of these, we want to figure out which diagram matches up with which situation. We want to write a multiplication equation to describe that situation and a division equation to describe that situation. And then we want to figure out the answer. All right, so let's go ahead and get right to it. So for number 1, Tyler poured 15 cups of water into 2 equal-sized bottles and filled each bottle. How much water was in each bottle? Okay, let's look at what our options are. So 15 cups of water, well, all of them mentioned 15 cups of water, into 2 equal-sized bottles, and they filled them up. So which one here would involve 2 equal-sized bottles that were completely filled up? Here, this one here, you might think it could be that way, but if you look here, they draw a solid line in between these 2 parts. So these are the 2 equal parts, and you can see this part here, they have a dashed line right here, which shows you it's only halfway filled up. So that's not going to be the right diagram. Here, 15 cups again, but you can see here, they've split it into 2 equal parts. Okay, and they're both completely filled up. So this is the diagram. Diagram 2 is the correct diagram. Again, I'm not going to write this out here, but you can turn on closed captioning in the video if you would like to see the words that are coming out of my mouth. Okay, so this is our diagram, and we want to write a multiplication equation and a division equation for that. So one way to look at it here, you can see here that we have 2 parts, and we are multiplying by some unknown amount, 2 times an unknown, and that's going to give us 15. So the multiplication equation is going to be 2 times an unknown. Okay, so an unknown here, I'm going to put a little blank spot there, and that's going to equal 15 cups total. Okay, now for division, you can see that what we have 15 cups in all, and we're splitting those up into 2 parts. We're dividing them into 2 parts. So for a division equation, we can say that it's the 15 cups divided by 2. Right? 15 divided by 2. All right, so if you work out 15 divided by 2, it's going to be 7.5. Your answer is 7.5. Okay, for number 2. Let's look at our situation here. We have Kieran poured 15 cups of water into equal-sized pitchers and filled 1.5 pitchers. And then we want to find out how much water was in each full pitcher. Okay, so 15 cups of water, equal-sized pitchers, but only filled 1.5. So it's like he got one, he filled it all the way up, and then he got a second pitcher, but he only filled that halfway up. So we want to look for what can show that here. So if you look here, now this one, 15 cups, and you can see, well, there's actually 3 parts here. It's just one of the parts. So that's not going to match up. Now we've already used this one here. This one does not show 1.5 pitchers being filled. You can see they're both filled. And then so this one here, you can see the way it works is you can see that, yeah, they draw a line here to split. These are 2 equal parts. And you can see this part here, as I said earlier, they only filled it halfway up. That's why it's a dashed line there to kind of show you it's not the whole thing. All right, so it's going to be diagram 1 for this number 2, right? And so when you look at the multiplication equation, you can think about it being the amount they used was 1.5 containers, right? Times, well, we don't know how much, right? We don't know how much we multiplied times, but we do know that it's going to equal 15. So we can say that it's going to be, I'll say 1.5, just to mix it up. 1.5, that's the same thing as 1.5, times an unknown, right? So I'm going to put a blank spot. We know that's going to end up giving us 15 for our division equation. Okay, so you can say that we have the 15 cups here, And we've divided those up into 1.5 containers. So 15 divided by 1.5, which is the same thing as 1/2, right? And that's going to equal whatever our answer is. All right. Now, you can do the math on that. I want to show you how you can use the diagram to help you understand what it's going to be. All right. So if you look here, notice how they split this container into half. I want to show you what happens if we were to split this container in half as well. What happens if I draw a line right here? Make it a little bit different color here. I'll make it pink. Okay. So if I split the container right there, then can you notice anything? Can you notice how there's really 1, 2, 3, 4 sections? Yeah, maybe you understand how it would be 4 sections. And so if these 3 sections are 15 each, what do we think is going to be in this section here? Because if you think about it, what we're looking at here, this is one container. This is a half of a container. So what that means is that this is one container, and this is the second container, 2 containers, and just half of it's not used. Okay, so if the whole thing is 2 containers, let's see, how much do you think is going to be in each of these boxes here? I'll tell you what, if I look at this here, I see 15 cups split evenly 3 ways. Can you see where this is going to be 5? Put this up here a little bit. 5. Whoa. Let me get back up here. All right, this is going to be 5. The spacebar is not doing what I wanted to do here. So, okay, so that's going to be 5, and each one's going to be 5. Can you see how that would be? So the idea is that if we have 2 containers, then we're going to have 5, 5, 5, and 5. That's 20, right? 20 is in 2 full containers. How much is in 1 container? It's just 5 and 5, right? It's just going to be 10, all right? So the answer here would be, I'll go ahead and write it this time for this one. It's going to be 10 cups. Okay, so 10 cups will be in 1.5 containers there. Okay, so the math way to go through that, let me show you the other way as well. If we were going to work this out using fractions like we did in previous activities, we could think about it like this. We could say that it is 15 divided by 1.5. 1.5 is 1.5. Okay, so 1.5 is 1.5. So we'll call this 1 and 1/2. Okay, 1 and 1/2, you can make that into a fraction. You can go around the world, as you might have heard. 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1 is 3 over 2. So this would be 15 divided by 3/2, because 3/2 is the same thing as 1.5. And then if you remember before, when we divide by a fraction, we can change this to multiplication. I'll actually use an X this time. Haven't used it in a while. And then we flip this second fraction upside down, so it's going to become 2 over 3. And this 15 stays here. Okay, and then since we're multiplying a whole number times a fraction, we can make the whole number into a fraction by putting it over 1. And so you would have 15 times 2 is 30, 1 times 3 is 3, and you'd have 30 divided by 3, and 30 divided by 3, well, we got 10 cups already, so we kind of could guess that it's 10. All right, so that's how it would work if you didn't want to use the diagram. Okay, let me erase all this. And then let's move on to number 3. So for number 3, it says that it takes 15 cups of water to fill 1/3 pail. Well, we've kind of already looked at the diagrams. We can already guess what we're talking about here because we've already used the other 2, right? So we can see here, diagram 3 is the one we haven't used yet. Okay, so you can see 15 cups, and you can see where it's filling 1/3 of the container or the pail, right? It's 1/3. This is 1 part, 2, 3. So it's filling 1/3. So that's our diagram. Diagram 3 goes with number 3. And so we just want to write the equations and then figure out the answer. So if we talk about the equations here, you can see where you're going to have 1/3 of the container, this part, times some unknown is going to give you 15. So you can think about it like that. You can say 1/3 times an unknown is going to equal the 15 cups. Okay, so you might be able to see the answer already here. So I certainly understand that for some people, it's going to be easier for you to tell the answer right straight away. But we want to be able to write the equations anyway so we can understand that. Okay, so 1/3 times an unknown equals 15 for the division equation. You can think about it being the 15 cups being split into 1/3 of a container. So we can say 15 divided by 1/3. And that's going to give us some answer that we want to be able to figure out eventually. Okay. Now, this is one where I think that the tape diagram really will help you. You can see if this is 15 cups and this is 1/3, then we can pretty easily see that this is going to be 15 cups here. And then this is going to be another 15 cups, right? And so you could do it that way. You could say, okay, 15, 15, 15, and you can get your answer that way, right? Okay, and so you should already have the answer of 45 there. If we were going to do 15 divided by 1/3 with the method I just used earlier, let me show you what that looks like. 15 divided by 1/3. Okay, dividing by a fraction, we're going to change it to multiplication. I'll use just like a dot this time. And then we flip that second fraction upside down. We find the reciprocal. So it's going to become 3/1. And then 15 is here. So 15 times 3/1, let's make it 15/1. And 15 times 3, that's 45, right? Over 1. So that's the way it would look if you were going to do it through multiplying by the reciprocal. All right, so the answer would be 45, right? Closed captioning, you'll be able to read the answer on your screen. All right, so we have 3 more diagrams. All right, so same idea, right? We're going to match the diagram, and then we're going to write the equations, and then we're going to figure it out. All right, in case this was a little bit blurry for some of you guys, it's 3/4 of a mile, 3/4 or 3/4 of a mile right here is what it says there, there, and there. Okay, so number 4, Priya's class has adopted 2 equal sections of a highway to keep clean. The combined length is 3/4 of a mile. So you put everything together, it comes out to 3/4 of a mile. So we want to know how long is each section, right? Because it has 2 equal sections. One group will do one section, the other group will do the other section, right? So which diagram here describes that? If the combined length is 3/4, that means the entire thing they're going to show us is 3/4. This here, 3/4 is not the entire thing. 3/4, this is not the entire thing here. So it has to be diagram 1 for number 4. Okay? So the multiplication equation. Okay? If you're looking at this here, you can see how many of these are there. The actual number of things doesn't appear anywhere on the page, but you should be able to see there are 2 sections, right? There's 2 of them. You can see that, right? So that means that for your multiplication equation, you're going to take 2 times the unknown. 2 times the unknown, and that's going to give you 3/4, 3/4 of a mile, right? For the division equation, okay, you can see you're taking 3/4 of a mile and you're splitting it into 2 parts. So you can say 3/4 of a mile divided by 2. Okay, and so we can see what that's going to be. Okay, some of you may be able to just understand that 3/4 of a mile, if you split it in half, you're going to get 3/8 of a mile. You might already be able to see that. But if not, let me show you how it works with the diagram here. My guess is that the diagram here is going to be harder for you to see the answer. So I think that the other method is going to be best for here. So let's go ahead and write that out. 3/4 divided by 2. Okay, this is a good one to practice. So we divide it by 2. Now you might be thinking, wait, we're not dividing by a fraction. But actually, no, we are. Okay, 2 is a fraction. 2 is really 2/1. So it's a fraction. It's 2 wholes, but we can split it up into fractions if we'd like. So 2/1 is what we're dividing by. And the rule is that we go ahead and we change this to multiplication. and we flip this upside down. 1 over 2, or 1/2. Okay, so 3/4 times, maybe I'll use an X here to make it a little easier to see, times 1/2. So that's going to be equal to 3 times 1, which is 3, over 4 times 2, which is 8. 3/8. Okay? But if you think about it the other way, half of a fourth is an eighth. So it's like 1/4. Half of that would be 1/8. Okay, not 4 and 8. It's going from 1/4 to 1/8. So 3/4 works the same way. Half of 3/4 has to be 3/8. Okay, so for some of you that might make sense. If not, you can work it out this way. All right, so the answer would be 3/8. For number 5, Lynn's class has also adopted some sections of the highway to keep clean. If 1.5 sections are 3/4 of a mile long, how long is each section? Now, I'm going to go ahead and erase this here so it's not blocking anything. So how long is each section? So which diagram is going to describe that, first of all, is what we want to be able to be clear on. And so if you look here, well, we just use this one here, right? That's a different situation. We're talking about 1.5 sections. Here, this is not 1.5. The whole thing is one section, and this is just one part out of 3, so that's not 1.5. Down here, you might be able to see it a little bit more easily. One section is here. The second section is here, but the second section, we're only using half of it. Okay, so it's diagram 3 for number 5. Now, for the equations, let's try to understand what's going to happen here. We know that this amount here, just as this amount here was 2, this amount here is 1.5. Right? So that means we're going to be taking 1.5 and multiplying it times, well, we don't know, right? It's a question mark. So 1.5 times an unknown equals 3/4. So I'll go ahead and type that in here. 1.5 times some unknown amount, that's going to be equal to 3/4. Okay, so that's the multiplication equation. For the division equation, okay, we can think about it as taking this 3/4 of a mile and splitting it up into 1.5 sections. So we could say it's 3/4 divided by the 1.5. Okay, so that would be the way to think about that there. Now, for this one here, I think that with the diagram, you might be able to see this a little bit more easily than in the last example, okay? And as a little reminder, remember what we did above here. Remember how we could see here that we could really see this as 4 parts and just 3 of them were being used? It's kind of the same idea down here. If you look here, they use just a half of a part here. Well, let's split this one in half as well and see what we're going to do with it. So we call this a half. Okay, and so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. All right. So if this is 3/4, okay, then this is going to be the 4th section, right? This will be 4/4, or we can think about it as being one whole thing, and this is 3 parts. Okay, so if this is 3/4, and then this is the 4th quarter, then how much is going to go in each box? Well, it's going to have to be 1/4, not 1/3, 1/4. Wow. Okay, 1/4 is going to go there. And then let me stretch this out a little bit better. Okay, so 1/4, and then 1/4, and then 1/4, and then 1/4. There we go. So each section would be 1/4. If this is 3/4, then 1, 2, 3/4. That's how that works. So if you can see that, then if we want to know how long each section is, here's one section. One section is made up of 1/4 and 1/4. That's 2/4. And 2/4 is the exact same thing as 1/2. So each section has to be 1/2. All right. And then so for number 6, we can already anticipate that it's going to be this one. We haven't used this one yet, okay, but let's make sense of it. A school has adopted a section of the highway to keep 1/3 of the section, to keep clean. If 1/3 of the section is 3/4 mile long, right? You see, this is 1 out of 3 parts. So this is 1/3, and it's 3/4 mile long. And we're going to know actually how long it actually is. So let's write our equations, and then let's work it out. So 1/3 of the section, that's how long the section is. That's going to be multiplied by an unknown. We don't know what that is. So we can say that it's going to be 1/3 times an unknown, and that's going to be equal to 3/4. Say 3/4 here. They match up to the same thing. 1/3 of the section, whatever that is 3/4 of a mile. For our division equation, we can say that we're going to be taking the 3/4 of a mile, and we're going to be splitting it up into 1/3 of a section. So 3/4 divided by 1/3. A section that's 1/3 of a full section. Okay, so that's our equations there. Now, for this one here, the diagram may help you, or it may not. So I'm going to go over both ways to solve this here. We know that these are 3 equal parts, and so if this is 3/4, this has to be 3/4, right? So I can go ahead and I can call that 3/4, and same thing, I'm going to actually just do it this way here. Same thing going over here. This last section is also 3/4. So if you think about it like that, then 3/4 and 3/4 and 3/4, how many quarters is that? It's 3, 3, and 3. That's 9 quarters, right? So it would be 9 quarters or 9/4. And if it's 9/4, then we can, that's a mixed number. We can simplify that, right, into simplify the improper fraction into a mixed number, I should say. So that's one way to think about it. So you should know the answer. And then the other way is to do the math that I was showing you earlier. If we write it like this, we say 3/4 divided by 1/3. Oops. There we go. We are dividing by a fraction. So we want to take this and we want to multiply. I'm going to actually change my ink color, and I'm just going to use the side here. I'll use purple. So this is the same thing then as 3/4 times 3/1, right? Because we just took that. So that's, oops, okay, I'll have to do that again. So 3/4 over 3/1. We just took this fraction and we flipped it upside down. So we got this. So 3 times 3, that equals 9, right? And then 4 times 1 equals 4. Okay, so we're working with 9/4. And so if we're working with 9/4, we can come way up to here. Remember, this was 9/4 as well. So we want to simplify 9/4, so you can just make this into division. And what's going to go in? It's going to be 9, which is being divided by 4. How many times is 4 going to 9? It is 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 9 take away is 1. Right? So 4 can't go into 1. We don't have anything down. So for right now, we're going to say that we have a remainder of 1/4. This equals 2 and 1/4. Okay, so I'm intentionally not writing the answers right next to the question, right? Because I want you to watch and listen and understand instead of just waiting to copy. All right, but you should know that for number 6, the answer is 2 1/4 miles. Okay.